What's going on, guys? My name is Billy. Welcome back to Comic Source, and we are back for the start of Falcon and Winter Soldier. I really like this episode. It felt more personalized. I felt a lot closer to the characters than I do in other previous iterations, and I feel like this is going to be a very emotional show on a different level than WandaVision was. But we open on a scene of Sam in his room. He's getting dressed, and this is just the start of some great camera work in this episode. They're getting a lot of close-ups and extreme close-ups just to show how tightly wound these characters are. There's a huge grip around these two characters from the world trying to get them to be something that they're not just yet, and it's affecting them. And I would like to point out that the bag that he puts the shield into is the same bag that Steve had in Endgame. And it's actually an art bag meant to carry paintings and stuff like that, because in the comics, Captain America is actually a pretty talented painter. And we had seen that in the first Captain America where he drew the monkey because he felt like a circus monkey. And then we get into the opening action sequence, which I thought was really good. It was really well paced. It was really intense. But it wasn't too intense. It was still lighthearted in some areas. And then that's when we meet Sergeant Torres, aka Falcon's biggest fan. And we learn that Falcon is trying to rescue somebody because his plane had been hijacked by Batroc. His character has been in Winter Soldier before, and of course he's played by the UFC fighter GSP. And then of course Falcon says Red Wing to attack the helicopters for him, and we had seen Red Wing in Civil War. And fun fact about Red Wing, in the comics, he is actually just an actual bird rather than like an electronic drone. But again, this was just a very intense opening with a nice D1 form tackle finish. And then we get a nice little moment where we have some civilians that are coming to thank Falcon for what they all did in Endgame, which is nice. It's not like that's the biggest thing in the world, but it's nice to have that little detail in there, that little continuity. And then that's when we get introduced to the Flag Smashers. And of course, Sergeant Torres makes that joke about Captain America being on the moon. This could just be them trying to be funny, or it could be a reference to the recent sword base that had just been built. But I do like that moon stuff transition into the next scene, where it looks to be Steve's memorial, but I don't believe that Steve is dead yet. I feel like they're going to save him so that he can give some sort of motivational speech to either just Sam or the two of Sam and Bucky at the end of the series, or later down the line. And then that conversation with Sam and Rhodey is kind of the beginning of when I felt like this show is just more personal. Like I felt like I was a part of the family during that conversation, sort of. And this episode does a good job of identifying the character goals for Sam and Bucky. When they said that the world is looking for someone to fix it, that is Sam. That is Sam's end goal by the end of this series. He just doesn't feel like he deserves the position. And then that's when we move into Bucky's nightmare, which we realize later down the road that the person that he murdered in that nightmare was Mr. Nakajima's son. Which in the nightmare, that fight choreography I thought was great. And I can't wait to see some more of that. And then that's when we move into Bucky's therapy, and then that's where some more of the camera work goes on. Where it's not the entire time, but when she is pressuring him with different questions, we get really close to feel like there is that grip around him. And then, of course, she roasted him and his cell phone when she said you don't got more than 10 phone numbers in this thing. And I'm the only person you called this week. How pathetic. But this is going to be a very emotional series for Bucky. And that is Bucky's character goal, to try and find life after war and after being Steve's right-hand man for so long, and now Steve is gone. He has to find his own goal and his own path for himself. Now, does that necessarily mean peace? Probably not. But it has to mean something that means something to him, rather than him just being a drone for somebody else, which is what he has been for the past 100 years. And then that's when we meet Mr. Yakajima, which is going to be Bucky's amends for this episode. Which made me laugh when he said, I am no longer the Winter Soldier, I am James Bucky Barnes, and this is part of my effort to make amends. That made me laugh. And then that's when we move to Louisiana, we get to meet Sam's family, and we see that they're struggling with their fishing business, which, even though they're in a different kind of civil unrest or social unrest where they're coming back from the blip and everything's flipped upside down, it is kind of parallel to what we're going through today with the coronavirus and everybody's businesses being flipped upside down and nobody knows what to do. It's nice to see that kind of parallel here. But I just don't get why superheroes can be broke. Like, I understand that if they're paid well, it takes away, the hero factor, that I'm just doing this because I want to be a hero. But they should not be broke. Where is the GoFundMe? But then that's when we move on to Bucky's date, which he does confirm to her that he is 106 years old. Which it's nice to know the exact number. We knew it was around there, but it's nice to know the exact number. But the rough part about this date is that she starts to ask more questions, and she's getting really close to why he's with Iori, which is affecting his mental health. And then, of course, he has to leave because of that mention of Iori's son. And then we move from Sam getting his plates ready and all of that to go to the banks, to Sergeant Torres doing a little bit more than monitoring chat boards. But I am curious, that person that he was fighting against, is he inhuman, mutant, or just an enhanced person with like a super soldier serum or something like that? Because they did allude to it where they said, do you think he's and then of course he got cut off. But I am curious to see how detailed they are going to go into that in the next episode. And then that's when we go to the bank, where we get a fun scene of the dude that's working at the bank just trying to be a fanboy, but as well as denying them at the same time. And then this is where we learn that Sam is in denial of moving on. But in order to become the person that he needs to be, he needs to let go of his past. It's the same thing as Bucky. Bucky needs to be able to let go of his past to be able to move on to the future. That's why these two characters are going to work so well together. And then, of course, at the end of the episode, that's when they introduce the world to the brand new Captain America, who, number one, has the most punchable face I've ever seen in my life. Number two, Halloween store costume. But all jokes aside, I think that this is definitely going to motivate Sam in the next episode, and I'm curious to see how exactly he reacts to it. Because I don't think he's just going to go up to them and be like, oh, you know what, now that you have somebody else, I want to do it. It's going to be more earned than that. But overall, I love this first episode. It was definitely a lot more character-driven, which is why it feels more personal. I'm very excited to see these two characters develop over the series, and hopefully Sam becomes Captain America and Bucky becomes the real Bucky that we've never really seen before. It's always been Bucky, but with a fuse. When is he going to turn into the Winter Soldier? But now we just have Bucky. But overall, this episode was a great way of introducing all aspects of the show. The Flag Smashers, Torres, Sam, Bucky, the family, Boat, everything. Without Bucky and Sam even working together yet. This was a great introduction. But that's going to be it for this week's episode. Can't wait to see the next one. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace.